Welcome everybody to the August 4, 2023 meeting of the Citizen Oversight Board. Ooh, I'm getting some feedback here. That's better. Okay. Thank you. I am sitting in today as acting chair for Julia Richmond. And our vice chair, Nick, is also out of the country today, I believe. So I will do my best to chair this meeting. I want to welcome everybody, including any guests and members of the public. Our esteemed guest today is the Executive Director of Public Safety, Armando Saldate. Just before we get to that, Julia Richmond is on maternity leave, and Anna Thalis, one of our former board members now, recently resigned, and so we've begun working with the City Council to recruit new board members. So anybody who may be listening, who is interested in serving on the board, please apply, and we are happy to consider any and all who are interested. Our videos have been completed. I believe both the COB video and the OIM video are also available. And so those will be releasing soon. So we're excited about that. And for those members of the public who may participate today in this meeting, remember that you can submit questions or comments via the Q&A function, in the Zoom chat there via Q&A. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we have the Executive Director of Public Safety with us today, and we appreciate his attendance at this meeting, Armando Saldate. And I'm going to turn it over to Armando. We've submitted some questions in advance to Armando, and I believe he has them. And so, Armando, why don't you just take it from here, to the extent that board members or members of the public have follow-up questions while you go through those, they can either, they can chime in or submit those through the Q&A chat. So thank you, Armando, and good morning.
Morning, board. Good morning, community. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy my time being able to present to you all and answer your questions. Thank you for sending them over kind of in two waves. I know there was a recent issue that has developed that has your interest, and I'm happy to take those questions initially so we can get through. Any questions that we don't, since we kind of had a pretty big list, I will definitely either follow up via email or written response, and hopefully Daniel can get them out to you all. First, I wanted to start with a real quick announcement. This just happened, some news since happened from our last meeting, and I want the public to know as well. We have, really a dedicated liaison in my office to the Citizen Oversight Board. And typically that role has been filled by our legislative or community director. Those have been roles that have been unfilled in my office due to some recent departures and the way that our city budget situation is right now, kind of having difficulty filling or getting the authorization to fill some positions. But with that, I had been working hard to identify who that person would be for particularly legislative affairs, which would encompass also the duties of liaisoning with the Citizen Oversight Board. I thought it was particularly important to get that person named when we had our new council onboarded. Obviously, you all know we have several new council people, and we wanted to make sure to have someone in place there so we could start that process of really getting everyone briefed up, and then especially during this mayoral transition, it's really an important role. I was able to look in-house to reach with someone that has just incredible qualifications for the role and has been here in safety, one of our longest tenured individuals here in safety. And she happens to also be a Juris Doctor and does a lot of amazing work here in our department. And so Emily Locke, who I think we've communicated this change with you via email, but I also wanted just the public to know she has been named our Policy and Legislative Affairs Director. She's already hit the ground running, building relationships with our new council, getting everyone briefed up, working with the new administration, and then also working with you all. So you will find her to be very communicative with you all, trying to keep you posted of all things. And we really have that intent. I hope you've seen during my tenure that I've tried to be as transparent as possible with you all and trying to make you more integrated in our process around policy development, new issues, talking about the current issues that we've all dealt with here in safety. So definitely look forward to Emily serving in this role and working with you all. I think you all are going to find working with her a real pleasure. And kind of can coordinate with that. Emily's going to send you out an email a little later, probably right after this meeting, giving you a heads up on a transparency dashboard that we will be making public next week. This is something that me and Chief Thomas especially have really tried to champion, and that is getting more information about what we do in our accountability realm around discipline and what we do about our police response. And all those have been pain points around, especially with our staffing issues around times to respond. So we want to make sure that the public has that available data for them. So we've been working hard with our data teams, making sure we can have good, readable, up to minute, that these things are refreshed every day with data that will be accessible. We wanted to give you all a preview so you can look at it over the weekend, and we will likely announce and publish these dashboards publicly on Monday. That's our plan as of this moment, barring any technical difficulties. And I got to put in that caveat because we're going to try to do it last week or this week sometime, but we had technical difficulties. So, we're hopefully you'll find it valuable. It's by no means a finished product. We hope this starts more and more data delivery that we can get out forward facing to the public. We have plenty of ideas how to do it around key performance metrics across all our safety departments. This is just the beginning. So I just wanted to get that announcement and jump right into the questions. So the recent issue that has really come up to the attention of our independent monitor to others has been this expansion or perceived expansion of duties for the Denver Sheriff Department. There have been a couple of recent and some information going around that I'm hoping, and thank you for these questions, because I think I can hopefully address them and we can get to a better place. First of all, I have to start with that I did not want my way of the board finding out about these things, about the monitor finding out about these things was not this way. I am disappointed that this is how it went. It was contrary to my guidance. My guidance to and direction to the Sheriff's Department was that we were to incorporate the monitor, the Citizen Oversight Board, our City Council, and then now our new Mayor administration in what the Sheriff's Department is hoping to do around criminal investigations within their facilities and some expanded authorities that they would be seeking to do such things. That didn't happen. Unfortunately, it kind of, the cart came out before the horse, and that information was out and about, and then also rumors and information started floating out there. And so there were some times where I tried to reel that back and tried to correct it. Out of transparency, I shared an email with, it's an email communication that me and the independent monitor have, that I shared with her when she raised these concerns to me. But it's also something that I've shared through Daniel to the board. I want you all to know that that was my direction and my intent, and you're going to very clearly see that I talked about incorporating briefings to you all, briefings to the Office of Independent Monitor, and briefings to City Council as essential steps in the process for us trying to roll out what this is. And what this comes down to is basically back in, before my tenure as executive director, the sheriff had approached the executive director at the time, the district attorney, the city attorney, and police chief, who was Paul Pazin at the time, around being able to have the authority to investigate low-level crimes that occur within jail facilities. That would be like an inmate on inmate assault, introduction of drug paraphernalia in the jail, those types of things. Right now, current state, what happens is if something like that were to happen, an inmate assaults another inmate, they want to file charges. we then, the sheriff's department calls Denver Police Department. Denver Police Department comes out, takes a report, and enforcement action if that's what's needed. There were long response times due to that. There were, obviously Denver Police is experiencing, particularly downtown where our jail is at, a lot of, there's major events. There's all kinds of things that were impacting response times. So at that time, that was something that was mutually agreed upon by all parties. Then we had to go through from idea and concept to how do we get this done? The how do we get this done was the hard part, because this is no longer a process. Our process is no longer a written process where folks write out written tickets and those tickets get copied and passed through the system to the courts and all that. It's very electronic. It's an electronic-based process now. In fact, my office, the Department of Safety, manages that electronic process, criminal justice process, to get people to court, get court dates scheduled, those people that are booked and in custody and all those things, all that communication between entities like the arresting agency, the jails, and the courts occurs through what we call the bus. It's a digital architecture of how our separate record systems talk to each other to make all this work. Well, that really became a barrier at that time, because we needed to have DSD needed to be on a component of the bus, needed to be in a records management system, which they did not have. So that became prohibitive for us to get that going at that time. But we started looking for solutions. So I give you that caveat because that's really where it kind of stalled for some time. When I got in this role, we continued to try to seek some solutions. My director of IT here in our office, he started seeking some solutions and working with DPD. And so we are working on some solutions and workarounds. Long story short, what's making this more difficult, not really on our side, it's been the courts are going through upgrades for their system. There's an upgrade in the TS system, the overall system that runs this. So it just really wasn't happening and wasn't likely to happen until next year. But this was something that was a priority of also Mayor Hancock. Mayor Hancock wanted this to be done. And so we are working on this to try to get it done with workarounds. When I saw, and you'll see in the email that I forwarded, that there had been some information that was coming out and about that this was about to happen, and that training may have been started or going to be starting. And I had not seen a delegation of authority. And just for everyone's knowledge, particularly the community members that are listening, a lot of what happens here around enforcing municipal ordinances, the city codes that are our city laws. If the Denver police are our primary function for enforcing that, they have charter authority to make arrests and do all those things. It's laid out in the charter. For other entities to take enforcement actions of ordinances and city code, they need to get delegated authority from the executive director of safety. That's me. So I'll give you examples of current delegations of authority that exist. Right now, I give delegated authority to the right-of-way enforcement to write parking tickets, right, or expired meter tickets. All those kinds of authority that take place are authorities that take place. I'll give you another example. Capitol Police from the Colorado State Patrol, those that work the state capitol, they have delegated authority to enforce like parks violations or like trespassing rules, delegated city ordinances that even though they're state certified police officers, they didn't have the authority to enforce here in Denver, mainly our state capitol. So those are kinds of authorities that exist out there now, delegated authorities. So that's what it would have taken for this to occur, for the sheriffs to be able to enforce low-level ordinance violations in the jail. When I saw a draft of the delegated authority, and those are drafted, with the stakeholder, which would be Denver Sheriff and the city attorney's prosecution unit. When I saw a draft a few months ago, it included crimes that were not jail only or jail specific crimes, and that confused me. So I asked for clarification, and you will see that in the email chain that I sent out. I wanted to see what that is, because generally, and as you all asked about And in your first question, you talked about an implementation of a bike patrol unit. That seemed to go against the prohibition that we already have in Denver Sheriff's policy against, general patrol duties. So that is something that we are working on. I needed to reach out to the sheriff and get some of their response. So you all asked about this because that's something else that came up. There was a policy that was distributed, a DSD policy that was distributed last week, or maybe this week, I'm sorry. Monitor and her staff saw the policy. They made me aware of it, and what it was the implementation of a bike patrol unit, a bicycle patrol unit. I was not aware of that. That's one of your questions. If I am familiar now with the policy, I am, because it was sent to me by Independent Monitor Castle. So I have looked at it. You ask would the duties of the bike patrol unit require a specific expansion authority from me? That is something that I'm trying to determine, and have you expanded the DSD's enforcement authority to include patrol functions or any other law enforcement functions? And then the other question is, are you prepared to do so if you haven't? So that's why I wanted to tell you a little bit of that history, because the other thing that DSD has told me is that the bike patrol unit and their intention around a criminal investigations unit is separate. It's a separate entity. The bike patrol unit, as it's been explained to me, is a current unit, and it's not an expansion of what's happening currently, or expansion of authority or an expansion of role. Basically, at our facilities at the LFC, the Lindsay Flanagan Courthouse, and our main jail, the Justice Center campus at 490 Colfax here, we have deputies, and you've seen them if you walked around here, that are patrolling the perimeter. They walk, they do security checks around the perimeters of the courts and the jail. This bike patrol function, as I understand it, would be those deputies that have those posts at the jail that do this, or at the courthouse that secure that. They would then do it on patrol bicycles, and would be able to do that, obviously cover more area, get to places quicker, have a quicker response time to issues that come up. So that's how it was explained to me. The other thing that DSD said is an added benefit to having officers that are trained in patrol bike functions. They have all completed training. I will tell you, I am familiar with training for bike patrol functions. It's something I did several years ago when I was a young cop. I was on a bike patrol in a large city and you go through a police certification mountain bike patrol. And it really shows you, safety, how to safely maneuver the bikes, and other kind of training. So those officers have been trained in that. But we are also, so the sheriff has said that although the policy was approved, that this function is not out there functioning yet, and that me and him have biweekly check-ins, and during our check-in next week, he was preparing to brief me on it. So that is having to do with the bike patrol function. Questions I have about it is that, there is, I do understand that it is post-focused on now it's being explained to me that it's focused to the post at the security of the jail and the courts. However, I wonder why then it wasn't included in a post order. The sheriffs have different kinds of orders. They have department orders that are, department-wide orders. And then for every post in the jail, every post in the hospital, every post where a staff member is posted or staffing, they have a post order. Those post orders tell you these are the duties and responsibilities for this particular post. So we will have that. I do see a hand up, and I don't know, is that you, Mr. Stein? You're on mute.
Muted, Stefan.
Stefan, you're on mute.
You can call me Stefan.
Okay.
Yeah, all good. So I just want to cut through this. It is the bottom line that neither the Criminal Investigation Unit team for DSD, nor the Bike Patrol, nor the Criminal Charges Filing Team, whatever these respective teams are being called, they have not been launched, right? I was trying to read your email while you were talking, and I think we just got it like 15 minutes before the meeting, but the highlighted language in your email said that, you know, basically you had questions about the policies. There was some vagueness in the policies in terms of, duties and responsibilities. You needed to get those clarifications made. Then you needed to review and approve policies. You needed to complete documents. Then people needed to be appropriately trained and the like before any of this could be launched. Is my understanding correct that none of this has taken place? And as you said very early on in your statement here was, sort of the horse got out of the barn a little too quickly here before any of these things happen. Is that a correct understanding?
Well, you know what, Stefan, I wish I could give you a definitive answer, but I think there's too much question now, particularly around, that was my intention. That was my clear guidance as to the department, was that exactly as you just stated. However, and Independent Monitor Castle has highlighted some concerns for me around this. There is material, there are briefing materials that you can find on the intranet or interweb here in the city around DSD, around which basically says the Criminal Investigations Unit is functioning, it is doing things in this realm. However, I will give one large caveat. They do not have delegated authority yet by me to do criminal charging, nor do they have the ability to do criminal charging yet, because we have not identified and put in process that electronic filing that I talked to you guys about a little bit. So that part of it, I can tell you definitively is not done, because that's things I control. Other things around whether they're stood up, they're staffed, and they're out there doing work right now. I know they were going through training. I knew that they had to go through police officer certification training, post-training. And so I knew that those types of things were happening, but them functioning as a unit, a fully staffed unit, it was my intention that they wouldn't be until all things got things. The other thing that I have to point out that became, and you'll see it in the most recent on that email chain issue that came up, was the legality of them functioning in patrol duties or functioning in general policing duties. Those of you that have been in the city for some time, and I know that's represented here on this call from this board, know that this issue has come up before. It came up before my time here in the city in the 2008-2009 timeframe. This issue came up before. At that point, it is my understanding that the city had made the determination that expanding their authorities to a more policing function, patrol policing function, was outside of the charter and would necessitate charter change. So that is a question that I've asked for a formal legal opinion. So how that goes for community members is when there is a legal question, I have inside a special counsel to my office. She's a city attorney named Wendy Shea, been doing this for several years, very valuable resource. She provides me legal guidance on day-to-day operations, legal matters. But when there's a big policy decision like this, a big question where we need a formal legal opinion, it goes through their chain of command all the way to the city attorney. I spoke to the city attorney yesterday for an update because I requested formally a legal opinion on will this necessitate a charter change? Basically, is this legal? And so they have not finished that opinion. So it could be one thing. It could be they say, nope, it's not even legal. We can't even do this. So all this talk of a policy in a unit would go away. Or it could be, it is legal, and then we'd have to continue working. And the things I want to make clear that I thought that was very important, and I think it's very important because we've learned from experience here. You all, and what my intention with the Citizen Oversight Board has always been to fully integrate you all in our decision-making process to get that community voice, that citizen voice in big initiatives. I also understand from our citizen oversight model, which is what we have here in Denver, and it's what a lot of cities hope to have one day, that we also needed to talk through, because through their ordinance, the independent monitor has a voice in our policy implementation as well. So that's why my direction was clear that prior to any of this going forward, before any policies or anything got finalized, we needed briefings to you all and we needed input. The other big entity in this.
Can I just stop you there, Armando? Yes, this one. Sorry, yes. I don't mean to interrupt. So just clarification in terms of my question. You have not provided delegated authority for this new criminal investigative unit for DSD, correct?
We have not.
So then
Correct.
what you said when you were initially responding to my question, you said you don't know what they're doing in terms of training, and they don't have charging authority, which obviously as a law enforcement, as a law enforcement officer, if you're going to do your job, you need to have charging authority. If they don't have charging authority, what, if anything, are they doing?
My understanding right now is that they're training. They're training to get ready, and that they may be assisting Denver police on joint type of investigation. An example of like a joint type of investigation would be Denver police is investigating someone trying to smuggle drugs into the jail. Obviously, that would be a joint information sharing, where our jail personnel who have done this for years, they help assist in the intelligence gathering and that side of the operation. So I assume that's what we're doing. I do also recall that I believe Chief Line has indicated to me that they are, when they're not training, helping do other supplemental duties in the jail, like cell searches. Part of the security operation of the jail is routine cell searches and searches of pods, so that they are doing those types of things.
Okay. I mean, it's a little it's more than a little troubling that any of this would roll out. I mean, to use your language, when we don't even know if it's legal. I mean, that the city attorney has not opined on it yet. The whole thing could go away. I mean, there seems to be a lack, really seem to be a lack of coordination here in terms of, making sure all the ducks were in a row in terms of legal approvals, training, policy change, et cetera, before any of this was rolled out. I think that's the, that's the import of what you're saying here. But we just want to clarify that basically that no charging authority, and that these folks aren't out there engaging in the types of law enforcement activities that would otherwise be handled by the Denver Police Department at this time until all these other qualifications are satisfied.
Yes, sir. Exactly. And I agree with everything you said. And that was one of the other things that me and the monitor talked about recently in regards to the bike patrol policy, because there is a language in the bike patrol policy that talked about enabling them to make stops, and that seemed to fall more into general patrol duties versus routine duties. So those are clarifications that we will be working on. I agree with everything you said. This is not how I wanted it to go. I wanted it to go by the process of having you all on the front end of it, whereas as we're bringing this out. And then that briefing is a two-way briefing, right? We brief you, our departments brief you on what their intention is, then we hear the feedback and input and recommendations from you all, which hopefully then equals better policy in the end. And that's really what I had hoped and desired. And just wanted to finish up my point. The other two entities I thought are very important, or I know are very important in this process, is making sure that we brief City Council. Our new mayor has really asked us all and directed all executive directors that our relationship with City Council and our communication will be one of over communication. We will let them know everything, and we will be very transparent. So I'm very much aligned in that. And so I believe that is something, in fact, I have Emily Locke working on that with the Sheriff's Department around getting those scheduled and all those things. And then the other part of this was because this started under the former mayor's administration. So him and his executive team were familiar with where we were going with this or wanting to go, but is really briefing our new mayor and his administrative team and executive team around this. That's important because this is policy decision, and they may have a different way. We do know his administration is going to bring change in policy. We see that in homeless response right now. So definitely, I really wanted to make sure that's something that I stressed was important to our DSD leaders to do.
I don't know how comfortable you are answering this question, but how did this happen? How could the horse get out of the barn and have these things occur before you had issued any kind of delegated authority or appropriate training and had gone through the city attorney's office? How could that happen? We're just interested in how this occurred.
Well, yeah, I am too. As you will see in my direction was very clear, I thought. So, I mean, obviously I can say this is probably when we have deficiencies like this or things that happen like this, you could point to miscommunication. thought I was pretty clear. We don't know. I don't know maybe how this kind of got out of control here or got out in front of things, but it is not the process that I had laid out nor the process that I thought we were all familiar with and doing. And so we will be working to get that, cleaned up and cleared up. And so, yeah, I wish it wouldn't have happened. And as you can state, that's why I wanted to share with you my communication on this realm so that you were clear from my side of things, how I wanted things to go. With that, Daniel, I know that I didn't go like generally down these, but I think we talked about this issue. I do want to talk about, the criminal charges filing team, that criminal investigations unit. We've talked about that. The sheriff's office has been working on that. We have been trying to communicate that. I have forwarded the draft policy to the independent monitor. When I met with the sheriff's executive team, he was out of town at the time, but I met with his executive team around these issues and around some of my directives around this. That's when they provided us the draft policy, but at that point is when I cautioned them that we needed a legal opinion to even go forward. And that's really where I tried to say, hey, before we even get into approving policy at that point, we need to make sure that we can see if this is legal. So I know that there's other stakeholders here and there's other considerations that we have to think about. It's not as easy as just granting this authority. There are definitely collective bargaining type implications here. Our deputies right now do not have or require peace officer certification. If we're requiring some to get peace officer certification, then do they fall in different collective bargaining rights? Do they now fall under a different retirement system, or do they want to fall under, because we have two separate retirement systems? Our sheriffs, although that they're sworn, they fall under our career service Denver employee retirement plan, while fire and police sworn fall under our fire and police union plan, which are much different retirement plans, and also cost-wise and things like that. So there's a lot of kind of like administrative also types of implications here that we need to think out and flesh out as well. So there's a lot to be, this is a major thing. That's why we needed to have it fully briefed to everyone to know the implications of this type of movement and change and how we do things. I want to make sure that, you all know what the questions were, that I know we kind of went around, but I was trying to get it kind of in a better organization to talk about. So I hope I answered your questions. I think there's more questions to be answered here. I think the sheriff will be coming in to you all to meet with you all. So he obviously will have an opportunity to answer some of those questions. And then as soon as I get our legal opinion on this, which I imagine will be coming soon, I will make that public to you all and let you know where we're going with this. Also, I need a policy direction and decision from the mayor around, where we're going, because like I said, this will have budget implications as well and prioritization implications. So we are in budget season right now. So these obviously are things that we need answers to, and we will get those as soon as we can. And then obviously I will definitely be working closely with independent monitor Castle and Greg Crittenden, her chief deputy, around any sorts of policy or changes that this is going to happen, and be as transparent around what's happening here and next steps as we can. That
there was something in the chat, but I think you answered it. Is the bike unit up and running? The answer to that is no. Am I right, Armando? Right.
So the sheriff told me, I'd heard conflicting statements about this, but the sheriff did in a communication yesterday indicate that they are not up and running. The policy is approved, but they are not up and running. Okay.
So the next question is, what is the extent of their authority? Not to answer the question for you, but they don't have any authority at this point.
They do not have authority from the law. So it would be authority like they have now, walking around the perimeter to conduct security checks.
Okay, very good. Okay. Any other questions for Armando on this particular subject or subjects that are related?
I have questions.
Yeah, Karen.
So are individuals on these teams being compensated by the state?
No, they're not. No.
So the training that they're doing, anything that they're doing out on the street, that's as a result of them volunteering?
Yeah, so they are doing it within their current roles and pay as deputies.
Okay.
So I'll jump to if there's no more questions, I'll jump to the next set of questions that we got in here. And just so everyone knows, we had some general questions around, and then we had some mayor transition questions. Then we had questions around mutual aid. I'll touch the mutual aid question just real quick because I know it's an important question, but I'm also limited in a lot what I can talk about because it is the subject of current litigation. So for everyone's context, the city of Aurora has sued the city and county of Denver around our position that we will not indemnify Aurora police officers that came here during the response to the George Floyd protest in Denver. We would not indemnify their actions in the protest lawsuits that resulted in that. So the city of Aurora has made the determination that since we would not indemnify that, they're suing us for that indemnification, but they also have pulled out of future mutual aid. This was a decision from their mayor and their city council. They would not provide mutual aid here. Mutual aid, and this is something I will supplement because it's more of a legal matter, but just the explanation of mutual aid, it resides in our in statute. So there is some legal components to mutual aid there. And then also there is the day-to-day, and I don't want it to be conflated, the day-to-day assistance that we do every day, multiple times a day to all our bordering cities and towns, whether it's fire, EMS, and police, and particularly Aurora. So let's say something's happening right at, Colfax and Xenia, but across the street, it's Aurora. Obviously, day-to-day with call-to-calls, we assist each other. We help in that each other, particularly in emergency situation. That is not impacted by this. Mutual aid really is talking about the big response like the George Floyd response. So that is really what this entails. We do have MOU agreements with other sheriff's entities, sheriff's departments, Arapahoe and Douglas counties. Those are still in place. One of the questions was, is that adequate? If we have another big deal with Aurora not agreeing to help us, do we have adequate coverage? Yes. I will say since George Floyd's happened, we've had more protests and demonstrations in downtown Denver. The Roe v. Wade protest, gun right. We've had it for a number of issues, large ones, and we have a much different deployment strategy. We have much different tactics that we learned from the feedback from the monitor's report, from just what we learned in mistakes that were made during the George Floyd response. We have a much different posture the way we handle things. We are adequately staffed. We also have, our entities that are adequately staffed in doing so. We do not believe that this serves any safety kind of protocol. There's also more things that we can deploy in a mutual aid environment. In a true declaration of emergency, and we've seen this in other jurisdictions, you can have the National Guard, you can have all sorts of elements. And so we do not feel that we are compromised in any way by not having their support for this mutual aid kind of thing. One of our biggest partners in this, particularly, is the Colorado State Patrol and Colorado Bureau of Investigation, the state, especially because they guard the Capitol and secure the Capitol, state Capitol. We work closely with them on these types of events. So we feel good about our posture. Now, conversely, if Aurora would ask us for help during mutual aid, we would go. That's something that I know Chief Thomas and I and the city and county of Denver leadership, we align under that we would help. We are frequently called upon, Denver Sheriff and Denver Police and Denver resources are frequently called upon to help. I'll give an example. There was I think it was in Thornton last week, there was someone that had climbed up a radio tower, was suicidal. They didn't have the equipment to go help. What did we do? We sent one of our high-rise structure response vehicles that was able to help bring this person down to safety. We do that, no questions asked, no delays. We do it often when we've had fires. We've deployed fire resources to other entities, the Boulder Fire. We deploy no matter what. That's just that's the nature of public safety and public service, and that's something we're always going to do. So I wanted to get that one out of the way, and then you all had some questions around the AIDS Center, and there was a concern around the AIDS Center. Oh, go ahead, Daniel. Sorry.
No, Stefan raised his hand.
Yeah, just to follow up on that subject, Armando. So we don't expect. You said we would go to Aurora and assist them. I mean, I don't know. Maybe your distinction between a massive public protest, a la the George Floyd protest, and that's what this dispute is over. Otherwise, we still do assist Aurora, and Aurora would assist us. What's the indemnification question on things that don't involve a state of emergency, large public massive protest? Is Aurora insisting on indemnification for those things, for things that don't rise to that level?
I don't know, and I would have to defer that to our legal team. Okay. There's a legal question here. I don't know what the scope of that is. I do know generally it's around the indemnification specific to the George Floyd response, and I do think it's tied to these emergency situations that's defined in statute. But I'd be I'd rather.
Yeah. Oop, I got some feedback here. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I must say, I personally agree with and I'm not speaking for the board, obviously. I personally agree with the decision of Denver. We should not be indemnifying, even if officers are assisting us from other jurisdictions. If they engage in misconduct, we should not be indemnifying them from claims that arise from that misconduct. And that's the position that I believe Denver is taking with Aurora, that led to Aurora then taking the position, well, if you're not going to indemnify us for claims arising out of alleged misconduct, then we're not going to help you in these declarations of public emergency. I think that's wrong. I know it was pretty close with the city council there, but the mayor was also supportive of terminating, which was unfortunate. But I personally agree with our position, whatever that means.
Thank you. Can I go to the next question?
Sure.
Okay, so the next question had to do with the AIDS Center. The AIDS Center, just so everyone's context, everyone knows, and thank you to the board members that have visited there. We always, and you're always more than welcome. You don't need an official tour. You can always stop by, and our staff will greet you and make sure you get a rundown of kind of what's happening in the space. First of all, it's been a tremendous success. We just served our, I think it's over our we reached the threshold of 700 people. It is something that we're continuing working to add entities to it, add community partners. We've received 2 recent grants, which have helped, particularly in our current, very tight fiscal environment. We just received a Caring for Denver grant to help women that are reentering community and navigating women that need service supports through this. What we know about women that are either criminal justice involved or that are experiencing homelessness, a lot of the women that have come in through the AIDS Center, is that at the center of that is trauma. There is trauma that is at the center of that. We are partnering in this grant with the Center for Trauma and Resiliency. We are working with them. We are very happy to receive this grant. We're working on administering that to provide more services for them, and are very excited about that opportunity to work with them. Another grant that we had is to hopefully help address the question that you all have around, it does not appear that DPD is regularly using it to deflect potential arrest. And so, yes, we are aware of that. We had hoped that would take better hold. This was, and I like to remind people, the idea of the AIDS Center was given to us by police officers that work downtown District 6 when they were frequently encountering the same person for low-level crimes in crisis downtown. And they said, hey, just taking them to jail for the few hours they're going to be there is not working. We need something else. So that was off that. We have not had that buy-in yet, or the officers delivering folks there in lieu of detention, or in lieu of taking them to jail that we had hoped. However, there have been those types of successes. The grant that we just received is to expand our law enforcement assisted diversion program. That has really been, I think, where we need to improve in this realm. The law enforcement assisted diversion program is a specific program. It's a specific state grant funded program that operates in jurisdictions around the country that is that touch point. It is basically the carrot and the stick approach. It is basically someone arrested for an outline of low-level crimes. You know, a lot of times this has been work in sex work, you know, prostitution, those types of offenses. Diverting that arrestee to services as opposed to the jail under a formal program where those charges can be deferred. So we're really hoping to strengthen that program and really make it low barrier for our officers to get folks to the center, you know, as an alternative to a criminal justice outcome. So that's something that we are working on and we continue to work on, but we are making strides there. Other police districts are that. And one thing that we've really had great success with is the buy-in from our courts. Our courts, our county courts, our judges have just done an amazing job promoting this from their dockets. People frequently come in as walk-ins from leaving the court docket, coming across the street. That's the great thing about the location, and coming across the street and being engaged in that and being engaged in services. And one thing I have to highlight when we talk about the AIDS Center, because it was such a success, was our Fresh Start program that we partnered on. We hosted it, but we partnered with the district attorney, the public defender, and many others, our city attorney and others, really spearheaded by DA McCann though. This was a warrant forgiveness program. We've seen it in other jurisdictions. I will be frank with you that there was a lot of I think there was a lot of resistance to this when this was first brought to as an idea forward by DA McCann back in the latter part of last year. We worked through that. We worked through where we were going to host it, and we were on board. We understood that it was needed. We hosted it on a weekend, on a Saturday. We didn't know what to expect. We had prepared, and we had all sorts of our community resources and all those things there. And we didn't know what we were going to get. But when we showed up that morning, we already had a line of people ready to come in. And that line of people continued to grow throughout the day. And it was just an amazing thing. I was there for it. It was just amazing. It had gotten so much attention. Even a food truck pulled up in the front to help for food. But we had food, we had services, we had a lot of things there. I actually witnessed a diversion right in front of me where the defense attorney had talked to their client and said, hey, if you connect right now to one of these service providers around addiction, around your addiction issues, and we get you connected right now, the city attorney was willing to then dispose of the charge and the judge would agree to it. And they were able to do it like all at once. That doesn't happen in courtrooms today. That is a long process. Sometimes people get lost and don't do that process. And then it results in an FTA and a warrant charge and a booking and all those things. A lot of that was happening there. I don't recall the exact numbers, but it was over 50 people that were served that day, warrants, and much more cases that were resolved that day because of it. I saw people that were leaving that day that were ecstatic, that you could tell truly they had a fresh start. And so really am hopeful that we're creating momentum from things like that, and with our expanded service delivery with our grants. The other thing that our lead grant, and I forgot to mention, will enable us to do is expand our hours. That's been our problem. You know, we know that these crises don't just happen during business hours when we're open. They expand on the nighttime and the weekends and things. So that's always been a goal of ours. It's just been budget prohibitive for us, but it is a goal of ours, is to expand our hours. So this grant will hopefully allow us to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Armando, that was I was among those who visited the AIDS Center, and I want to compliment Emily. She was also there and answered our questions, and we appreciated that very much. And Carlon is great. He's doing a terrific job there. Where our concern was over the hours. I mean, look, you know, and Emily acknowledged this, and this is outside of the aid center's control. You know, incidents don't happen, all incidents don't happen between 9 and 5, and a lot of things happen at night. We just wanted to make sure, and it sounds like you're working on it, to the extent that somebody is interested in diverting to the aid center, as opposed to being, you know, being charged or arrested, that if it's after 5 p.m., that they be given the opportunity to do that. And Emily had told us that you were while you were working on getting more budgetary authority, that there were workarounds so that somebody wouldn't have to be arrested if, for example, an incident occurred at 6 p.m. on a Thursday as opposed to 5 p.m.
Yeah, well, thank you for that feedback. We hear it loud and clear, and if I could wave a magic wand, that would be my priority, is to make it 24/7 if we could. So. Thank you. I think, well, I'll go to the next questions. Unless, Danny, do you want me to, I'm going to get into the set questions. Do you think there's anything else I should cover? Okay, that'll be good. Okay, so the next questions were about the street enforcement team and kind of, you know, what the stats have been and some takeaways. And thank you for that question and the continued engagement around the street enforcement team. We've worked hard to develop this team to serve the communities, to serve especially our encampment situation. That has been something that you all know, and it's something that continues. Even our independent monitor gets complaints about encampments that are then forwarded to me and my team to handle. Our street enforcement team has rebranded. We saw that, you know, street enforcement was, when they first were rolled out, that was something that we talked about for some of the same issues that I talked about with DSD around that electronic issuance of tickets and all those things. Those were some of the barriers we encountered, but also what we found in our enforcement space. And what I'll tell you right off the bat is we've had 0 citations we've issued since the team has started. And really realizing that it's not enforcement based, it's really engagement based and outreach based. And most of our, if not all of our, we always start with that outreach and engagement of service delivery as our priority for folks in crisis, particularly at encampment. So back in the latter part of the Hancock administration, we had reclassified the team from, you know, they were actually their classification was based off park ranger kind of classification, more of enforcement minded. We actually changed them to engagement classification. So we are going to be rebranding them to street engagement folks as opposed to street enforcement folks. It is more in line, and you'll see with some of these stats, more in line with their services. They've made 2,595 contacts so far this year in 23. Some of those contacts aren't individuals. Some of those are repeated contacts. As you can imagine, you know, we frequently encounter the same individuals that we're running. It's part of that relationship building. It's part of gaining that trust with them to try to convince them to try to seek some service offerings. No citations have been given. All compliance that is achieved is through voluntary compliance. And that is really around like us going to someone and saying, okay, this tent that's here is actually in the right of way. It's a right of way encumbrance. You need to move because it's going to get moved either through a cleanup or you are subject to enforcement or you're trespassing on private property, those types of things. In that time, they've been one of our biggest referral sources for the aid center. They've made 865 referrals to the aid center. They've referred 30 folks to Coast outreach team, the Department of Housing Stability's outreach team. They've conducted over 600 welfare checks. And a lot of those welfare checks have had to do with our engagement in the Downtown Action Team. The Downtown Action Team was started, I believe, in November of 22. It was really an effort with our business community and others to engage really around the folks in crisis in our downtown that were, you know, people that were going to conventions, people that were tourists, all those things that people were concerned about with. So they've done a lot of that. But here's one of the things that I'm most proud of the team is, well, first, they get out there. They're out there. They know these encampments. They're out and about more than anything. If you drive downtown, you're going to see them. They're out there engaged with folks. In that engagement and them being out there, I definitely want to highlight this because this is important. They've saved 9 lives. They have reversed overdoses for 9 folks because they have been trained and carried Narcan. naloxone. That is the nasal spray. We've been trained. It was one of our early trainings. We knew that we were encountering folks in addiction and in crisis, particularly the fentanyl crisis. We see that a lot of encampments. We knew we were going to encounter people. We wanted to make sure we could help, and we have 9 folks that they've revived, and then obviously then called. They have police radios. They call emergency medical services, get an immediate response. That's just, for me, it's amazing. And anytime I hear them vilified, I'm like, I wish people knew that they're out there literally saving lives. They are out there engaging these encampments where people drive by them every day. Our folks are out there engaging them and trying to get them to a better place. They have very good connections with lots of folks out on the street. They build great rapport with our community and really try to help. And they're some of our first, hands on the street that get out there and focus on getting that help. Where we could improve and where we really have looked to improve in so many areas is around I think as a city system, and I'm so excited about Mayor Johnston's declaration of this as the homeless emergency as a crisis, because it's really truly fusing our city services together. As a city, we are siloed. You all know that, you recognize that. Lots of government systems and services are siloed. We do lots of things, but we do it in silos. We still have done that in our homeless service delivery. We are always looking in safety to integrate that. We did it with the AIDS Center. We want integrated service delivery. We want all city services in one place. I think we need to, and it's a requirement if we're going to be successful with Mayor Johnston's initiative to house 1,000 people. We need to integrate this outreach. SET shouldn't go out there alone. SET should have mental health resources right there. It shouldn't take a referral to post outreach team. They should be right there with us. And we should be integrating more our response and service delivery to navigate folks that are in crisis to the help they need. And I think it's going to be required if we're going to get them housed, particularly under the urgency that the mayor wants us to. And we agree that we need to respond to this crisis. So that's really where we want to work at. We're always looking at how we can do that and how we can maybe attach physical health services with us, like EMTs, and mental health services with us, because we see both. We see people in physical health crisis and we see people in mental health crisis. So that's really where we're at. And then also, we are also some of the frequent callers to STAR and to EMS teams. When we go out to an encampment and we see someone that's in a physical urgent requirement, physical health requirement, we then get our folks get on the radio and call EMS for an immediate response. Same with STAR. If we see someone, which we frequently do, in a mental health crisis, our folks get on the radio and call STAR, and STAR responds quickly. So that is something that I really wanted to highlight for you all around that. Any more questions on that?
I think we're at time, but I want to give the board and or any members of the public an opportunity to ask any questions. Armando, we appreciate all the responses and information that you packed in less than an hour today.
I'll follow up with written responses to the rest.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
And we can keep going if we want.
We can.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you.
Okay, all good. All right. So, are there any questions, comments on anything that Armando has addressed so far this morning?
One thing, if we can keep going, I think would probably be
go ahead.
To you all and the community. You had a set of questions around mayor transition. There's a lot of questions around mayor transition. Obviously, I have the question of mayor transition because it affects my job and whether I come to work. So, obviously, when there was a switchover in the transition, I'm a mayoral appointee. All cabinet level mayoral appointees were extended by Mayor Johnston. He had a talk with us all, asked us if we would extend to August 31st, which I am happy to do so. In fact, and then the jobs were posted. He posted all jobs on denvergov.org job site. So all our jobs were posted. If we wanted to stay in the job or be considered to stay in the job, we would have to reapply. I have reapplied. Doing this job has been the honor of a lifetime, but is something that I feel like we've made some good strides. But there's, I had 18 months or 16 months, and I think we need more time to really establish the culture change and the innovations that we want to do. I think a lot of what we're doing and working towards aligns with Mayor Johnston's vision for our city, especially his bold aspirations around how we engage in the bigger problems around homelessness and public safety. So very excited about that, and hopefully get the consideration and opportunity to continue to serve. If I don't, I will do everything in my power to make sure the transition to the new executive director is smooth. I want nothing but success for them and the team that's here, and to our public safety, and mostly to our city, our community. We all want, it was loud and clear that everyone wants to feel safer and have a more vibrant community, and just really get through all those problems that came post-pandemic, right, that we're all dealing with. So we're working on that. Hiring's doing much better. 911's hiring doing much better. So really working towards that. But you all talked about what is the level of change that this mayor can do. And, you know, just for everyone's knowledge, we have a strong mayor form of government. He can institute a lot of change. He sets the priority. He sets the budget priorities. He sets all those things. So he has a lot of methods and instituting change, and we're all ready for it. And we're all ready to adapt and do what we need to support those initiatives. So I didn't touch all those, but I just wanted to get that out important to you. For timing, there are some positions they do recognize may extend beyond 8/31 because they're hard to find positions. I don't know if that includes mine, but it is something that I am definitely working towards and trying to make sure. As soon as I know timing, I'm very transparent with everyone. I'll let you all know. I also want to put one thing on your radar. You know, the mayor had a bunch of community organizations and community folks that chaired committees, and there was a public safety committee, subcommittee, and they developed a report. Daniel, I will share that report with you after this, if you could share it with the board. It is going to be publicly disseminated. It was shared with us earlier this week by the mayor's chief of staff, but it's my understanding that the end of this week, so I'm assuming today or maybe Monday, there will be a public distribution of this report, but I will share it with you all, the copy I have. You know, I do want to say what the mayor gave us with when he gave it to us. You know, this is the perspective from the folks that sat on this board. This is not his direction, but it is the perspective. And I think it's important that we take in these perspectives and read that. I will say that in some of the information's on there, some of it's inaccurate, but we will definitely take in the feedback, and all those things that are highlighted are things we're working on and are doing better and much better. So I will share that with you. So I'm sorry to go over a little bit, but I thought that might have been important for you all to get information about.
Appreciate that. Anything else from the board? Oh, Karen, go ahead.
Going back to the street enforcement team, are you aware of progress being made to improve the relationship between the community and the street enforcement team?
Yeah, I do think so. I think there's a lot of progress being made, or that there is work to be done in this space. I feel it's very unfortunate that they've been kind of vilified or been painted as the picture of enforcement for encampments. That's just not the reality. That's not the reality of what's happened. You see it by what I've given to you in the data. You see it about the times of the 9 people that they've saved lives on. I mean, you could tell what their priority is. The priority is to help. So, but yeah, we're definitely working on that. We always can get better around how we engage our community and how they understand what we do. And definitely that's something that is obviously a priority of the mayor.
Are they still in mediation?
Mediation? I'm not aware of mediation.
Okay. Or, okay.
That might have had to do with STAR, Karen, I think.
I think that's what you're talking about. If you're talking about
mediation, STAR as opposed to street enforcement team. Yeah. Can you address that, Armando? The mediation?
Yeah, it was my understanding that the community advisory group for the STAR, which is not a safety program, it's a public health and environment. There had been, I know, a mediation process around that, but I'm not aware of anything other.
Okay. Thank you for that correction, Stephen.
Oh, no problem. Anything else? Okay, Armando, we will let you go. We appreciate your time, and we'll look forward also to the written follow-up as well on some of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good weekend. Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay. Liz, is there anything that you'd like to discuss in public session?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, please go ahead then.
Oh, no, excuse me. I thought you meant in executive session. I apologize.
Oh, okay. But nothing in public session? Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. Last comment. Last opportunity for any public comment. I don't see anything in the chat or the Q&A. And if there's nothing further, then
we can. I think we can do minutes.
Okay. Do you think you're cool with the fact that 4 out of 8 is okay because of the sabbatical from Larry? Okay.
Yeah, I think we count Larry as inactive.
Okay, fine.
And then that puts us at 7. So.
Okay, very good. We have 4. So Daniel circulated minutes from both the July 7 board meeting and then also the July 21 board meeting. If there are no comments or additions, can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you, Daniel.
Sure.
Okay, why don't we will go ahead and move to executive session, and we'll see everybody on the other side.